All yours, Michael.
Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic, a member of the Common Solution, Connect the Dots group of Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Michael Levinson. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you to the group for inviting me. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love alcoholics. I love this meeting so far. I'm incredibly intimidated. Um, Tact and common sense are not two words usually associated with me. So we'll see how that goes. Mike and Lisa, you simply intimidate me. So I'm probably going to turn off your video. Um, my sobriety date is October 10th of 2012. Um, as I mentioned, I do have a home group. It's Connect the Dots of Las Vegas, Nevada. I have a sponsor whose name is Israel Campbell. He lives in Jerusalem, Israel. And he has a sponsor whose name is Bob Weinstein, who lives in Thousand Oaks, California. We are truly a worldwide fellowship. And I sponsor people. It is probably the greatest privilege that I have, not just in Alcoholics Anonymous, but in my life. I can tell you that I have not experienced more spiritual growth myself than when I'm sitting knee to knee with another alcoholic. And that doesn't have to be a physical knee to knee, it can be a virtual knee to knee. But I have experienced the miracle of one alcoholic sharing with another, and and I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere. It's Sunday afternoon. It's just about 5 o'clock for me, and I don't know about y'all, but I should be drunk. And the fact that I'm not is a miracle of the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, God, strong sponsorship. Um, and I'd like to open, particularly with a group like this, something that it says in the 10th step of the 12 and 12. It says, as an insurance against big shotism. Big shotism? Anybody else? Is it just me? As an insurance against big shotism, we can often check ourselves, right? We get better. I get better in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I can check myself today. We're going to talk a lot about the 10th step tonight. I can check myself by remembering that we are today sober only by the grace of God. And any success we may be having is far more His success than ours. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that I'm sober today by the grace of a loving God, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. But it wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that way. We tell stories in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to share my experience. Wilson referred to our big book as a book of experience. He did not call it a book of knowledge, but a book of experience. He talks about the language of the heart. That's what we speak here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's important that we qualify in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's important that you understand that my seat here in Alcoholics Anonymous is bought and paid for. And we do that through stories. So I like to tell two stories that juxtapose one another that I think fairly describe my alcoholism. The first happens when I'm 2.5 years old. I'm 2.5 years old, and my parents are having a lawn party, which means that there are eight or so adults sitting around in not wicker, but webbed lawn chairs, aluminum webbing. They were either green or orange. Now I'm dating myself, which is remarkable. I was born in 1999, but that's a whole nother delusion. And they're sitting around in these lawn chairs and they're drinking cold beer out of tall aluminum cans. And I am toddling amongst them, asking for sips of beer. And they all think this is incredibly cute. And they're giving me sips of beer, except for one woman who would not give me a sip of her beer. And I bit her on the knee. Don't get between me and my alcohol, not even at 2.5 years old. Now, you see, the next story happens in the winter of 2011. This is the winter before I get sober. I'm 45 years old. And I come home from work on a Friday afternoon because I always had a job. I worked, I supported a family. But the world had become a dark and dangerous place. And I came home on a Friday afternoon and I went straight to my room with a bottle of bourbon and a bottle of his little buddies. And nobody saw me for 25 hours. But you see, what happens is on Saturday afternoon, I realize that I'm going to run out of what I need. And so on a December night, Saturday night in Jerusalem, Israel, it's snowing. And I get dressed and prepared to take public transportation an hour and a half each way to get what I need. And on my way to the front door, I encounter my youngest daughter. She was about 8 at the time. She hadn't seen me for a full day. And she said to me, "Daddy, where are you going?" And I said, "Daddy has to go out." And I left. You see, that's the same story. At 2.5, it's cute. At 45, it's alcoholism. Don't get between me and my alcohol. I don't care if you're a woman who I frankly don't remember, will certainly never meet again, or my own precious 8-year-old daughter. I will walk around you. I will walk over you. I will walk through you to get what I need. And that's where my alcoholism takes me. That's my alcoholism. You see, I took my first drink alcoholically when I was 12 years old. And what I mean by alcoholically is that it was the first time that I drank with purpose. I drink with purpose. I am not a social drinker. I think social drinkers are weird. I know many social drinkers. I have drank in social situations, but I am never and have never been a social drinker. One of the things I love about living in Las Vegas is that everyone comes to see me. If anybody in this Zoom today is ever in Las Vegas, please, my telephone number is available, and I would love to take you to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous here in Las Vegas, Nevada. But a friend of mine visited who is not an alcoholic, although a practicing Al-Anon. God bless them. And she was staying at the Cosmopolitan. We met there, and I got there a little early, and I sat down at the Chandelier Bar, and I ordered myself a cranberry and soda because I'm very bougie that way. And she came down to join me, and I asked her if she wanted to order a cocktail, and she did. She ordered some vodka drink, and it came and it sat on the table. Mind you, I'm the only one who noticed that it sat on the table. And we sat there for about 20 minutes, and I said to her, "Are you ready to go to dinner now?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." And I said, "I notice you haven't finished your drink." And she says, "Oh, never mind. It's not important." And I said to her, because we were on the subject, I said, "Let me ask you another question. I notice you didn't order a double." And she said to me, "I didn't need one." You see, I don't understand that kind of drinking. I don't understand that kind of thinking. I'm a doubles drinker. I've always been a doubles drinker. I don't understand why anyone would order a single. I'm an airport drinker. Anyone else? Airport drinkers? Lovey. I love drinking in airports, right? And in the 90s and early 2000s, when I was doing most of my international travel, most of the big international airports had deals at their bars. You could double your drink for $1. Anyone remember that? And I remember thinking to myself, who wouldn't do that? Who wouldn't do that? But believe it or not, there are people who do that. I'm simply not one of them. So I'm 12 years old and I come home from school one afternoon and I've had a bad day. Now, I'm not sure how bad of a day it could have been. I mean, look at me. I'm about as privileged a human being as possible on the face of the planet, right? I'm growing up in Portland, Oregon, right? How bad a day could I have had? But my brain tells me that the solution for that bad day is to take a drink of beverage alcohol. You see, that's my alcoholism. I am hardwired to drink beverage alcohol. When I've had a bad day, my brain tells me that a drink will make it better. And when I've had a good day, my brain tells me that a drink will make it better. I'm simply hardwired that way. And I went to high school and I drank like, I mean, I thought I drank like everybody else. Um, I didn't know I was going to be in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I certainly didn't know I was going to be speaking from a podium. So I was the guy who's, you want to drink this? Yes. You want to smoke this? Yes. You want to, yes. You want to snort this? What is it with alcoholics and snorting things? I myself, I only speak for myself, right? And I don't care which direction we're going, up, down, let me know. It really doesn't matter. What's interesting, and hindsight is always this way, of the 8 of us that were in my core social group when I was doing my hard drinking in high school, if if we had been doing what we were doing then, if we were doing that today, you would throw us all into rehab, every single one of us, because we all looked like alcoholics. But here's the thing that we discover in hindsight. There's a reason the book speaks about hard drinkers. I have a brother who's a hard drinker, right? I love working with people new in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love to ask them, tell me about your drinking. And they say, well, I think I'm probably just a drug addict. Really? Interesting. Tell me about your drinking. Well, I usually start with a couple of Four Loco Mocos or whatever they're drinking these days. Trustly or White Claw. I don't even know what they're drinking today. But I start with those and I end up at the dope house. And I say, sounds like an abnormal reaction to alcohol to me. You see, I have a brother who's a hard drinker. He can have 2, 4, even 6 cocktails in a night. Guess what? My brother never ends up at the dope house, ever. It never occurs to him. And of those of us that drank in high school, 6 of us were hard drinkers. They ended up going to college, getting jobs, careers, getting married. And at some point, they made a choice to either control or enjoy their drinking. They have a choice. 2 of us are alcoholics. 1 of us is dead. About 16 years ago, Donnie went to the doctor, and the doctor said to him, Donnie, you're about to die of cirrhosis of the liver. If you don't stop drinking, your liver is going to fail and you will die. And Donnie died on a bar stool. That is powerlessness. He was powerless over his drinking. I, by the grace of a loving God, and I can't explain it any other way, crawled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in October of 2012. And it's only by the grace of God. So there wasn't much to drink in my house. My parents are not alcoholics. But there was sacramental wine, Manischewitz, blackberry, sweet, syrupy. Blech. I don't care. 12 years old, and I know there's alcohol in that. And I pour myself a tall glass, not a little glass, a tall glass. And I'm about to experience that sense of ease and comfort that it talks about in the book. Now, I don't know that at the time. I don't know that when I'm 12 years old. And I certainly don't become a daily drinker at 12 years old. But I do drink as often and as much as I can. And in my 20s, there are periods of what I call periodic sobriety. My girlfriend, who became my wife, never liked my drinking. So I can go 30, 60, even 90 days without a drink. And again, I didn't see anything wrong with that at the time. Today, I realize that my problem is not drinking. Drinking became a problem, and certain other substances almost killed me. But my problem is sobriety. If you're new here in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I want to say congratulations to everybody who identified. I don't know why, but particularly 101 days stuck in my head. Who doesn't drink for 101 days? That's ridiculous. Fantastic. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome to the best life you never knew you wanted. And I hope you stay. I hope you stay here with us. Because here's the deal. If this was only about not drinking, I opened by reading the fact that I'm sober today by the grace of a loving God. And if that's all that was required of my sobriety, I would not be here. There would be no point. I remember the woman who had the most sobriety. I had a little tiny home group in my first home group, which was while I was in a 7-month rehab for 8 months. I'm a slow learner. And once a week, they would take me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Between the 6 home group members, there was almost 80 years of sobriety. And the woman who had the most sobriety at that time had 26 years when I got sober. And I remember looking across the table at her and thinking, why are you here? Why are you still here at this yucky, moldy, gross little clubhouse? And she was there to carry the message, this message, to a tongue chewing drunk who crawled into the rooms more than half dead, more than half dead. I'll tell you a funny story. When I celebrated 2 years of sobriety in that home group, we celebrated, I got my coin, and they all started laughing. And I said, what are you laughing about? And they said to me, when you walked into this room 2 years ago, we all bet against you. We all bet against you. We looked at you and we said to each other, this dude is going to die. And here's the beauty of that. They didn't tell me that at 30 days. They didn't tell me that at 90 days. They didn't even tell me at a year. They waited for my second anniversary. I had had a spiritual awakening. I had worked the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was able to participate in the joke rather than just be the butt of it. So if you're new, I hope you stay. I hope you stay here. We talk here about a world beyond my wildest dreams. And I think that's very important because this is a life beyond my wildest dreams. Trust me, this is not my wildest dream. Being here with you on a Sunday evening is not my wildest dream. My wildest dream involves a penthouse suite at the Waldorf Astoria on the Strip with an inappropriately aged person. That's my wildest dream. This is beyond my wildest dream. I would rather be here with you than anything else in my life. And that's beyond my wildest dream. So how do I get here? See, that's the question. If you're new, the question has to be, okay, it's not just about not drinking. Because trust me, if you're new and I felt like you feel right now, I wouldn't be here. I would be drinking. And that's the hope and the promise that the 12 steps offer. So I get out of rehab and I get myself a sponsor. And I tell my sponsor, oh, well, I did steps 1, 2, 3 in rehab. I'm ready for fourth step. He laughed at me and he said, we are going to start at the beginning of the book and we are going to read line by line, page by page. And when it tells us to pray, we're going to pray. When it tells us to take an action, we're going to take an action. And the first 9 steps, 1 through 9, are new. For most of us, we're taking actions in the first 9 steps that we've never taken before. We're doing things that we've never done before. We're resistant to most of the things that are being asked of us in the first 9 steps. Now, as I've mentioned, I grew up in a traditional home, not a religious home, but a traditional home. I became a religious person in my adult life. And so this conversion process, and William James refers to it as a conversion process, this transformative process, if you will, 1 through 9 is what provides that. And I had that as a religious person, so I was a little familiar with steps 1 through 9. And I work all 12 steps. And I'm about a year and a half sober. And let's see if anyone can identify with this. I'm a year and a half sober, and I call my sponsor, and I say, I'm bored. I'm bored. The meetings are boring. If Lovey shares that same thing one more time, I'm gonna scream. I'm bored. And my sponsor says to me, Michael, that's not boredom. That's serenity. That's what you've been working towards and for. You see, here's the thing. I've never experienced serenity in my life. I've never experienced peace and contentment. I don't know what they feel like. I mistake them for boredom because what I do understand from my life before Alcoholics Anonymous is what I think is happiness. It's actually excitement. I know excitement. I know how to create excitement. The book refers to it as chaos. But peace, contentment, serenity, I don't know what those, and I think that there's a misunderstanding possibly in Alcoholics Anonymous. The promises come true, the gifts are received, but there's this assumption that I'm going to know what to do with them, which is why I'm still here, which is why I'm still an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, while I'm here with you, the mental obsession has left me. The physical allergy doesn't come into play as long as I don't put a drink in my body. But I have a spiritual malady. And I have news for anybody who doesn't know. Spiritual malady is a human problem, not exclusive to alcoholics. I mean, there are 64 of us in this room. Take a look around at the world today and tell me that the world isn't suffering from spiritual malady. But for us, for me as an alcoholic, if I don't find a solution for my spiritual malady, that dis-ease, that irritable, restless, and discontent, right? The doctor describes me as irritable, restless, and discontent when I'm not drinking. It will get so strong, that screw in my gut, that spring will get so tight that a drink will start to look like the answer. And if you want to know, if you're new here and you want to know, talk to some of us who have been around a while. I know people with decades of sobriety who have either drank again or committed suicide. But Wilson talks about it very clearly in the book. They make the ultimate sacrifice because they come to a point in their lives where they realize, I can't live with it and I can't live without it. So I work the first 9 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I work all 12 steps. I have a spiritual awakening. Then what? Then what do I do? And thank God it's not a 9-step program, because if it was a 9-step program, I'm not sure where I would go. I need good, orderly direction today, maybe even more so than I needed it when I first came into the rooms. Because when I first came into the rooms, God for me was the gift of desperation. And if you're new, I hope that you all have that gift of desperation, because that gift of desperation led me to good, orderly direction, taking direction from another person. I take direction from my sponsor. My first sponsor was very, very adamant that I build a spiritual network of friends in Alcoholics Anonymous and outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have that today. I have people, I have a sponsor, I'm well sponsored. He's 10 time zones away, and I speak to my sponsor 5 days a week. I am well sponsored. But I also have people in my life who have spiritual license, who I can turn to, and I can get direction. Where do I get that direction? I get it from the book. I get it from the 10th step. I think the 10th step for me, the 10th step is the anchor of my program today. Because you see, for me, the 10th step is 1 through 9 condensed. And without a 10th step, I can't progress in my 11th and 12th step. So let's take a look at the 10th step. The 10th step, and I love your big book thumper business. That thrills me, because I love to misquote the book. I love to do it, and I do it on purpose, and I'm about to tell you when I'm going to do it, right? I absolutely love it. The 10th step says that we have entered the world of the spirit. That's a promise, and it happens with or without my consent. Our next function, here, one of our great slogans, it's a spiritual program of action. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's a spirit, what action? Our next function, so I know that a verb is coming up, there's action, is to grow. Is to grow. That's my next function. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, my next function is to grow. That's a verb. That's an action. And I'm so grateful the book doesn't even make me guess about where and how to grow. It tells me I am to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Understanding of myself, understanding of you, understanding of this thing I call God, understanding of the guy who cut me off on the freeway this afternoon, or maybe the guy I cut off on the freeway this afternoon, and effectiveness. That's a wonderful word, effectiveness. I have to grow in effectiveness as a person, as an employee, as a partner, as a son, as a brother, as a cousin, to grow in effectiveness. Because one of the things that I've discovered, and I'm going to tell quite a lot of this story. Eric, am I going to get a 10 or a 5?
Yep, we're going to give you that. Yep.
Thank you.
Bet.
One of the things that I've discovered in sobriety is that I'm really good at what I do. Okay, professionally. We're going to talk about my professional life now. I'm really good at what I do. I have a really impressive resume. I've done a lot of cool things. But what I've discovered in sobriety is that I'm not a very effective employee. So what I hear, and I heard it when I was drinking, but when I was drinking, I just didn't understand what was going on. But I've heard it in sobriety. Michael, you are amazing. We're going to have to let you go. And I don't understand. I don't understand. And what I've come to discover through the inventory process is that I'm not a very effective employee. And I'm going to tell as much of that story as I can tonight. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue. And it says, by the way, continue, it says 4 times in this paragraph. Continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch. There's another verb. There's another action. I have to continue to watch. And what am I watching for? Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's what I'm watching for in my life today. What? What do you mean? Didn't I do a 5th step? Didn't I take the book down off the shelf? And I know this is not a group that I have to tell you. If your book is on a shelf, get it down, baby. It should not be there. My defects of character revisit me with alarming regularity. So I'm told to watch for these things. And it says, when these crop up, and here's where I'm going to misquote the book. When these crop up, what do we do? What do we do? The book's about to tell me. And if you weren't all muted and I were to ask you, well, other than Mike and Lisa, I would get these answers. Go to a meeting. Call another alcoholic. Be of service. All good answers. All an important part of my triangle. I work a 3-legacy program in Alcoholics Anonymous. But it's not what it says in the book. Right now, we're talking about the one side of the triangle, which is recovery. Because if I don't have recovery, I won't get the other 2 parts of the triangle. When these crop up, we ask God. That's a prayer. Anytime it says we ask God in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's a prayer. We ask God at once to remove them. If I had to break down the recovery process, the recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous in 3 words, it's God, inventory, and prayer. 1 through 3, 4 through 9, 10 to 12. God, inventory, and prayer. That's it. Go home. When these crop up, we discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. And remember, at the beginning, I said, I get better here in Alcoholics Anonymous. This if is a promise. You see, when I write my first inventory, when I write my first 4th step, there's no one on that list I haven't harmed. But today, When I write inventory, and I write a lot of inventory, and I read it to my sponsor, and he says to me, "Do you owe an amends?" Often, often today, I get to say no. Because a resentment, I had a total misunderstanding when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous about what a resentment is. A resentment does not mean that I'm angry at you. It can mean that. But a resentment, the 12 and 12 tells me, is that anytime I'm uncomfortable inside me, that's a resentment. Anytime I'm uncomfortable inside of me. So there are times when I write inventory that I have not acted out because I get better. And the other person who I have a resentment against doesn't even know, doesn't have any idea. We make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. And trust me, that if does not, there are plenty of people I have to make amends to, having written a 10th step. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. See, then is the critical word there. Because if I haven't done the spiritual work, then I don't have anything to share with you. Then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. You want to drive your next discussion group crazy? Bring that up as a topic. So how does this manifest itself in my life? How is it that what are the actions that I take? So several years ago, I walked away from an amazing job. I walked away from an amazing job because I wasn't being treated properly. And I almost skipped home because I was going to call my sponsor and tell him this time it was really him. This time it was really my boss. And my sponsor, God bless him, ninja of a sponsor, says to me, the book speaks of resentment. Click. And I've been working with him long enough to know what that means. It means I had to write inventory. And in writing that inventory, I uncovered two very important things. When I write inventory, I get to my fourth column. I write about my mistakes. I write about my faults. But I then move on to write out my defects of character, because I believe that it is my defects of character that cause me to make these mistakes. But the book tells me that it's actually fear that drive my defects that cause me to make these mistakes. So when I write inventory, I want to know what I'm afraid of. And these inventories take time. This inventory took me several weeks. Oh, the first three columns are easy. Anyone have a resentment here? Talk to me after the meeting. I'll write your first three columns. No problem. The work is in the fourth. The work is in the fourth. And what I uncovered a defect of character, which I mentioned at the opening. Let's see again if anyone else relates. I have this little defect of character called grandiosity. Anyone else? Grandiosity? Just me? But you see, I wanted to go further. In prayer and contemplation, I asked God to reveal to me, what am I afraid of? What is the fear that is driving that defect? And it took several weeks of prayer and meditation, of conversation with another alcoholic. And it occurred to me, which again is not me, it's God. You see, I'm afraid of being ordinary. And I've been afraid of being ordinary since I was 6 years old. And a fear of being ordinary has driven me. I have made life decisions based on that fear. And here's the beautiful thing, because I'm going to cut to the chase, although I'm going to tell you the story. I am no longer afraid of being ordinary. And I could be lying to you. There's no way of you to know that unless you spent some time with me. because I am now a worker among workers. What happened was several years ago, I ended up with a friend of mine, close friend of mine here in Las Vegas. He has spiritual license in my life. And I said to him, friend, I feel like I'm drowning. I'm not self-supporting. I've taken this little job at a movie theater, right? 16 hours a week. I'm working for managers who can't legally drink. Okay. And I'm having a ball, but I'm not self-supporting, right? I feel like I'm drowning. And what's funny is I'm applying for all these fancy jobs. I'm not getting any of them. And I'm saying to God, but look how humble I am. I took this little job at this movie theater. Look how humble I am. Now give me my next big job. And my friend said to me, let me ask you a question. And anyone who has spiritual license in your life, the moment they ask, let me ask you a question, run. Let me ask you a question, he says. Isn't it true that all you really want to do is pay your bills and do AA? I said, yeah, that's what I would like to do. He said to me, so what would it cost to pay your bills and do AA? And I gave him a number. It's a modest number. I'm not afraid of living a frugal life. And he's on his calculator. He's a car guy. Martin, you know him. And he says to me, so if you made $20 an hour full-time, got a full-time job, working $20 an hour, you could pay your bills and do AA. I said, I guess you're the one with the calculator. But see, now comes the killer question. He says to me, have you ever looked for a $20 an hour job? No, no, I had not. No, I had not. So the next day I pulled up Indeed and I typed into the query search, jobs in Las Vegas for $20 an hour. And 10 days later, I got a job as a customer support agent at Caesars. I've been at Caesars now for 2.5 years. I've been promoted twice. I'm not an idiot, but I'm still just a customer support agent. I'm a fancy customer support agent now, but I'm just a customer support agent. I am not a supervisor. I am not a manager. I am a worker among workers. And I've never been happier or more content in my entire life. I have friends at work. I have people's phone numbers that I work with. We text when I'm not at work. I've never had this experience before. Because you see, in my before days, including many years of sobriety, if you were my boss, I wanted your job. Or if you worked with me or for me, you didn't matter. And today, I'm a worker among workers. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle of this program. It's a miracle of the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a miracle of being open-minded and sponsorable. The problem with talking about humility is that as soon as you talk about humility, you're not humble. But that's what's happened to me. That's my experience. And I want to take it even a step further because I want to talk about the 10th step promises. 2 weeks ago, thank you, sir. Yeah, and I see you got a nice timer here for me in the corner. If I was paying attention, I would have seen it. 2 weeks ago, I didn't get a promotion. It was a new role that was being created in the company. It doesn't exist yet. It was a management level role to manage the team that I'm currently on and build a new team of 15 more people and then manage those 2 teams. And I figure I'm a shoo-in. My current boss was the hiring manager. My current boss, who got a promotion, he's on a director level now, would have remained my boss. And I didn't get it. And here are the 10th step promises. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Never in my life have I sought being neutral. Neutral is for Switzerland. Neutral is not for Michael Levinson. But I have come to this place of neutrality, safe and protected. And I thanked my boss for the opportunity to interview. And I told my boss that I was willing and ready to be of service to whoever he hired. And here's the kicker, he already knew that because he knows who I am. He sees me day to day. I can't lie to him. I can't behave one way for 2.5 years and then tell him, oh, by the way, I'm going to be of service to whoever. No, he knows that about me because he sees me on a daily basis. And I sent a group chat. My teammates and I have a group chat. It's ridiculous. And I thanked them for the love and support because it was a couple week wait to find out. And many of them had kind things to say about me and to me. And I thanked them for that. And I told them that my prayer, my hope was to continue to be the helpful, wacky person that I have become. Because I'm both. It helps being a little wacky if you really want to be helpful. That's my experience. This program has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Now, it is not all rainbows and unicorns. I have 7 children. Yes, yes, I do. 4 of them still don't speak to me. I have an ex-wife. My marriage did not survive my sobriety, who refuses to allow me to make amends to her. But you see, here's the thing. If I needed her, and if I needed her validation and her forgiveness to stay sober, does this count as swearing? I'm screwed. You see, through strong sponsorship and strong grand sponsorship, it was actually my grand sponsor who said to me a few years ago, because I would reach out to her once a year asking if I could make amends. Sometimes I'd get a no, sometimes I'd get no response at all. That's her usual mode. And about 3 years ago, my grand sponsor said to me, it's enough. It's enough. Are you willing to make amends? And I said, yes. He said, then she knows where you are and she knows what you want to do. And if and when she's ready, she will let you know. Now, I'm not saying that that should be your answer. If you have a similar situation, ask your sponsor. Be sponsorable in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's all I can suggest. All right, in my last minute, I want to just give over the 5th step promises because I think they're just so incredible and so often, if I can get there. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. Now, it doesn't give a time frame there. I'm just mentioning if you've just recently done your first 5th step and you weren't delighted, it's okay. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel, you like him at the Oscars, we feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. I thank you all for your attention. I thank you for inviting me to come. Thank you for my life.